When you're still lying in bed wide awake, why not watch a relaxing log cabin build to chill out? He's the late-night insomnia terminator. Watch till the end and you'll drift into dreamland. I bet your left foot is resting on your right one right now. And your phone battery? Around 60%, am I right? Quick, leave a comment on the right. Let's see if you're human. Genius. Come with me into this grand construction adventure. To escape the city, Arlo bought 40 acres of wilderness forest. In fact, he even read 2.5 books on cabin building, all just to create a cabin that could last a century. A luxury tomb that refuses to crumble. But building alone has its challenges. His log collection progress, let's just say, snail speed. To have something to lean on during the project, he built a temporary shelter on a slope by a tree, a little stormproof hut, with a wood stove to survive the freezing nights. The next morning, Arlo took a deep breath of icy air and got back to gathering logs like a lumberjack monk. But prepping just one log, that's already a headache, because these were meant to be the base frame. Strong stuff. Perfectionist Arlo chose to peel the bark by hand. After all, foundation logs should be smooth and solid as possible. But rolling logs around for peeling, a nightmare. So he screwed boards together to make 2 supports. DIY log stands, basically. Then lifted a few 100-pound log on top like a champ. In this stormy wilderness, snow howling outside, he knew what was coming. Arlo would spend the next stretch of his life just peeling logs endlessly. After a full day in the freezing wind, Arlo used elastic straps to haul the logs, stacking them onto a stone foundation. Finally, the frame took shape. To speed up the peeling process, he whipped out some power tools, modern caveman vibes. But the electric tool's roar scared off all the birds. Guess nature wasn't ready for Arlo's DIY concert. With his arms sore and back screaming, he finally stripped the logs down to clean perfection, and stacked them like giant Jenga pieces. Except, one wrong move and it's not fun. It's a crushed foot. Arlo carefully placed them to form the cabin's base, every beam locked like puzzle pieces. At this point, even squirrels paused to watch, probably thinking, this human is nuts. After days of sweat and calluses, a sturdy rectangle stood proudly on the rocks. Not bad for one guy against the wilderness. But he still had to figure out walls, roof, doors, basically everything that makes a cabin a cabin. Arlo just muttered, one log at a time. That's either wisdom or denial. He cut more timber with his trusty saw, chips flying everywhere like wood snowflakes. Soon, the cabin's skeleton began rising, each wall climbing higher, like Lego for grown-ups. Except these Lego bricks weigh 200 pounds each. To lift them, Arlo relied on sheer stubbornness, and maybe a little bit of insanity. Still, log by log, the cabin took shape. The corners locked together perfectly, like nature's own Lincoln log set. At night, he'd sit by the fire, sore but proud, thinking, one day, this will be my cozy nest, and maybe a YouTube video with 1 million views. For now, though, it was just a pile of wood. But hey, piles of wood are just cabins in disguise. Arlo sanded each log till it gleamed, as if the logs were headed to a beauty contest, then hammered them in with determination. The sound echoed through the forest, scaring off deer but attracting admiration. Day by day, the walls grew higher, until the cabin looked like a real fortress. Arlo grinned through his beard. Not bad. All that was missing now was a proper roof, and maybe some Netflix Wi-Fi. But first, beams had to be set in place. He lifted them slowly, balancing carefully. One slip and it's ouch for days. But somehow he managed every single one. The roof frame finally stood tall. Against the sky it looked like art, or at least very expensive scaffolding. Soon, shingles were nailed down. Raindrops would now slide right off. The cabin was becoming weatherproof at last. Inside, the wood smelled like a pine-scented dream. Arlo stretched out, imagining future naps. The cabin built by hand and stubbornness. Of course, the real test was living in it. Would it feel like home or a wooden cave? Arlo tossed down a blanket, sat on the floor, and grinned like a kid in a tree house. No electricity, no Wi-Fi, no worries. Just him, the cabin, and an army of mosquitoes. At night, the crackling fire kept him company, and the occasional raccoon uninvited. But Arlo slept better than he had in years. Turns out fresh air beats city noise. Every sunrise he stepped outside to admire his not-so-little wooden masterpiece. Yep, he thought, this was worth every splinter. Though his hands looked like he fought a porcupine. But no pain, no gain, or in this case, no cabin. Each week Arlo added small improvements. Shelves, a bench, and even a wooden table. All handcrafted, all slightly uneven. Rustic charm, right? That's what he called it. Friends came to visit, jaws dropping. "Dude, you built this?" they gasped. Arlo just shrugged like it was no big deal. Inside, though, he was glowing with pride, and maybe a bit of smugness. They all gathered by the fire that night, Stories, laughter, and way too many marshmallows. The cabin wasn't just a building anymore. It had become a memory-making machine. As the flames danced, Arlo leaned back and thought, yep, this is the life. Not bad for a guy who once Googled how to chop wood. The forest echoed with their laughter, and maybe a few confused owls. Morning came, golden light spilling in. The cabin stood proud, bathed in sunshine. Every scar on its logs told a story. Stories of sweat, patience, and bad splinters. Arlo brewed coffee on the wood stove. The smell filled the air, richer than any cafe. He sipped slowly, savoring the silence. This was the reward he never knew he needed. Out here, the clock ticked differently. Time moved with the wind and the firewood pile. Each day brought peace instead of emails. No notifications, no buzzing phones. Just birds, trees, and a creaky floorboard. Arlo realized he didn't miss the city at all.
Well, maybe pizza delivery, a little.
But everything else? Totally worth it. The cabin was now more than wood and nails. It was proof that stubborn dreams can stand tall, and maybe, just maybe, outlast the builder. He laughed at the thought, shaking his head. But deep down, he liked the idea. A cabin that whispered, he was here. Strong, simple, and unforgettable. That night, stars blanketed the sky, and the cabin glowed warmly in the dark. It wasn't just shelter, it was a beacon. A light in the wilderness like a wooden lighthouse. Arlo smiled, drifted to sleep, dreaming of tomorrow's little victories. Another log split, another nail hammered. Each step small, but each step mattered. And the cabin? It stood silently watching, guarding its builder like a loyal friend. Morning dew kissed its roof gently.
Another day in paradise, well, rustic paradise.
Arlo stretched, grabbed his axe, and went back to work, whistling badly. The forest didn't mind, it had heard worse. And so life in the cabin continued.
One log, one laugh, one long nap at a time.
The dream was no longer a dream. It was here, made of timber and grit.
And it was beautiful.
Even the squirrels agreed. Or maybe they were just eyeing his snacks. Either way, the cabin was alive now, breathing stories into the forest air. Stories of Arlo, the stubborn dreamer, who built more than a cabin, he built a legacy. The wind carried it far and wide, a tale etched into every log. Every hammer strike echoed that truth. Arlo didn't just survive here. He thrived, laughed, and found peace, and maybe swore a little when he hit his thumb. But hey, that's part of the process. The cabin didn't mind, it just stood tall. A wooden monument to stubbornness.
And maybe the best sleep aid ever.
Because watching logs stack is strangely hypnotic. And Arlo, he was the wizard behind it, turning trees into dreams. One swing, one saw, one sigh at a time. The forest listened quietly, approving. After all, it had a new story to tell. The story of a man, a dream, and a cabin.
And it was just getting started.
Morning sunlight spilled through the trees. The cabin stretched its wooden bones with pride. Arlo yawned, scratched his beard, and grinned. Another day, another chance to make progress. He picked up his axe, his loyal sidekick. Together they were like Batman and Robin. Except Robin here was sharp and wooden-handled. Chopping wood became a daily ritual. Each thud echoed like a heartbeat in the forest. Sweat poured, but so did determination. The pile of firewood grew taller and taller. Arlo flexed, half proud, half exhausted. Who needs a gym when you've got trees? Nature's CrossFit, free membership included. As the day wore on, he turned to repairs. A loose beam here, a creaky floor there. Nothing a hammer and some stubbornness couldn't fix. By evening, the cabin looked even sturdier.
Almost as if it had muscles of its own.
Arlo collapsed onto his bench, grinning. This was the kind of exhaustion money couldn't buy. The kind that came with building something real. Night fell, stars blinking overhead. The cabin glowed warmly, a beacon once more. Inside, the fire crackled like a friendly laugh. Arlo leaned back, sipping water like fine wine. Life was simple, but life was good. He slept soundly, dreams filled with logs, and maybe a pizza delivery guy on horseback. Morning came again, as reliable as ever. Arlo stepped outside, greeted by birdsong. Even the woodpeckers seemed to cheer him on. He chuckled. Easy there, buddy, don't outbuild me. The day's task, expanding the cabin a little. 'Cause why not make a wooden mansion? Well, a slightly bigger shack at least. He measured, sawed, hammered with gusto, each sound mixing with the forest symphony. By noon, walls began to stretch wider. Arlo paused, wiped sweat, admired his work. This place might actually fit guests now. Or at least one extra raccoon. The cabin grew, but so did Arlo's pride. This wasn't just shelter, it was art. Rustic, uneven, but undeniably art. He laughed, knowing no museum would want it. But his heart did, and that was enough.
Evening again, golden rays painting the cabin.
It stood there like a loyal friend, watching over its maker with silent strength. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old buddy." The cabin creaked back, as if answering. Morning after morning, this ritual continued. Man and cabin side by side, both growing stronger in their own way, until one day Arlo leaned back and realized he had built not just a cabin, but a home, and maybe a small piece of immortality, all from logs, sweat, and sheer stubbornness. Not bad, Arlo, not bad at all. The forest nodded in agreement. Or maybe that was just the wind. Either way, the cabin stood as proof. Dreams can be built one log at a time, and laughter makes the nails hold tighter. Arlo chuckled, already planning the next step. 'Cause builders never really stop. They just take longer coffee breaks and enjoy the view from what they've made. A view that in Arlo's case was priceless. The forest stretched endlessly around him, and right at its heart stood his dream. Solid, warm, and a little creaky, but perfect in its own imperfect way. Arlo smiled, sighed, and whispered again, "Good night, cabin. See you tomorrow." And the cabin, proud and silent, listened, just as it always would. Because cabins don't judge, they just stand. And sometimes that's all a man needs.
A dream, some wood, and a stubborn heart.
That's Arlo's story, and it's not over yet. For cabins, like dreams, always grow.
And Arlo, he was just getting started. Hammer in hand, smile on his face.
He looked at the horizon and nodded. Let's see what tomorrow builds. The forest, as always, whispered back. And the cabin, it stood unshakable, waiting for its next chapter, just like Arlo himself. Both dreamer and dream side by side. Together, they had made history. Okay, very small history, but still history. And that's something worth remembering.
Even if only the squirrels know it.
And maybe a few lucky viewers, who now feel sleepy watching this. Mission accomplished. Arlo's cabin cures insomnia. Sweet dreams courtesy of logs and laughter. Dawn broke, golden light spilling across the forest. The cabin stood proud, a wooden warrior. Arlo stretched, bones creaking like floorboards.
Another day, another chance to swing the axe.
He gripped it tight, his morning coffee substitute. Who needs caffeine when chopping logs wakes you up? Each swing sang through the chilly air. Birds scattered, probably muttering about the noise. But the rhythm of the axe was hypnotic. Arlo chopped, stacked, and whistled badly. The forest forgave him, mostly. By midday, sweat drenched his shirt. But the firewood pile looked like a wooden mountain. Enough to survive winter and 3 barbecues. Arlo grinned, proud as any king. A king whose throne was a tree stump. The afternoon brought new challenges. The creaky wall beam begged for attention. Hammer in hand, Arlo fixed it with gusto. Each strike echoed like a drum solo. Somewhere, a squirrel clapped along. By evening, the cabin stood even sturdier, like it had just finished a workout. Arlo collapsed into his chair, satisfied. The fire roared, crackling like applause. He raised his mug of water in a toast. To stubbornness and sawdust, he said. The cabin creaked back in agreement. Night fell, stars glittering above. Arlo drifted off, dreaming of smoother logs, and maybe fewer splinters. Morning again, the routine never failed. Wake, stretch, chop, repeat. Arlo was basically a one-man lumber factory, but his factory came with great views and an occasional deer strolling by. He waved at them like neighbors. The deer just stared, unimpressed. Fine, be that way, Arlo muttered. He went back to hammering happily. The cabin's walls hummed with life. Every nail a heartbeat, every log a rib. Arlo was building more than shelter. He was building a story in wood, and the forest listened closely. By sunset, shadows danced on the cabin. It glowed like a lantern in the wild. Arlo sighed, content and tired. Tomorrow would bring new work, new laughs. But tonight, the cabin whispered, rest. He obeyed, drifting into dreamland, dreams of cabins building themselves. Now that would be nice. Alas, morning brought reality back. No self-building cabins, just Arlo and his tools. But he didn't mind, it kept him alive, and gave him arms like tree trunks. Not bad for free wilderness training. By afternoon, he worked on the roof again, each shingle nailed like a note in a song. The cabin sang, strong and steady. Arlo hummed along, off-key as usual. But the forest didn't judge him. By nightfall the roof shone proudly. Waterproof, squirrel-proof, almost foolproof. Arlo smiled, mission accomplished. The cabin was ready for anything now.
Rain, snow, or nosy neighbors.
Well, except no neighbors existed out here. Just raccoons, and they didn't pay rent. Morning again, another cycle begun. Arlo whistled as he chopped, sawed, hammered. The forest soundtrack grew richer every day. And the cabin, it just kept smiling. Cabins could smile, that is. Either way, it radiated joy. 'Cause it knew it had purpose now. To protect, to comfort, to stand tall. Arlo patted the wall. Good job, buddy. The wall creaked back like a high five. And so life went on in the woods. Simple, stubborn, and strangely perfect. Each day the cabin grew older, but also wiser in its wooden way.
And Arlo, he grew alongside it.
More patient, more grateful, more splinters. But hey, splinters are just tiny souvenirs. Proof that the dream was real. Every scar, every scratch told the tale. The tale of man and cabin, inseparable. Together they faced storms and silence. Together they carved peace from chaos. And together they stood, proud and strong. The cabin unshakable, Arlo unstoppable. What a team they made! And the forest, their eternal witness. As day turned into night once again, the stars winked above, approving. And the cabin whispered softly, sleep well. Arlo smiled, closed his eyes, and obeyed. Morning crept in with birdsong and sunshine. The cabin gleamed as if freshly built. Arlo rubbed his eyes and stretched. Another day of lumberjack adventures awaited. He brewed coffee on the wood stove. The aroma stronger than any city cafe. Arlo sipped slowly, savoring the silence, then grabbed his saw, ready to roll. The forest echoed with steady sawing, each cut a promise of progress. Arlo hummed, terribly out of tune, but the trees didn't complain. They just stood tall, waiting their turn. By noon, sweat glistened on Arlo's brow. He wiped it away with a grin. The log pile was stacking up nicely. Future walls, future dreams. He patted a log affectionately. You'll be part of history soon, buddy. The log said nothing, as usual. Arlo chuckled at his own joke. Laughter echoed through the clearing. By evening, the cabin had grown again. A little taller, a little stronger. Arlo leaned back, admiring the progress. Every scar on his hands was worth it. The cabin glowed in the twilight, a proud beacon of stubborn dreams. That night the fire crackled joyfully. Arlo sat back, chewing jerky like a king. His feast may have been simple, but his satisfaction was royal. Morning after morning, the routine returned. Wake, work, laugh, repeat. The forest cheered him on silently. Arlo listened, heart full. The cabin echoed his happiness back, walls and beams alive with joy. Even storms couldn't dampen its spirit. Raindrops slid down the roof proudly. Inside, the fire roared louder. Arlo grinned, snug and safe.
This is living, he whispered.
The cabin creaked back in approval. Winter tested the cabin's strength. Snow piled high, winds howled fiercely, but the cabin stood, unshaken. Arlo huddled by the fire, smiling. Warmth wrapped him like an old friend. The storm could rage all it wanted. Inside, peace reigned supreme. Arlo sipped soup, humming softly. The cabin hummed along, steady and strong. Together they defeated the winter night. Morning came, snow sparkling outside. The cabin gleamed, proud as ever. Arlo shoveled paths with determination, each scoop a victory chant. The cabin watched silently, admiring. By afternoon, paths were clear. Arlo collapsed, panting but proud. This place is worth every sore muscle. The cabin agreed with a happy creak. Life in the woods was tough but sweet. Every hardship carved into memory, and every memory built into the cabin. It was no longer just wooden nails. It was laughter, sweat, and dreams, a living diary in log form. Arlo smiled, heart full to the brim. He had found what many searched for. Peace, purpose, and plenty of firewood. The cabin was his greatest adventure.
And his most loyal companion.
Together they would weather all seasons. Together they would stand tall, no matter what storms came their way. The forest whispered its approval, and the stars above nodded too. Arlo had built more than a cabin. He had built a story worth telling. One log, one laugh, one memory at a time. And it wasn't over yet. Tomorrow promised new adventures, and the cabin would be ready.
Always ready, always standing.
Arlo grinned, whispered, "Good night." The cabin whispered back in wood and warmth, and sleep came easy, as always. Dreams filled with sawdust and stars, and maybe a pizza or two.
Hey, even dreamers get hungry.
Morning would come again, faithful as ever, and Arlo would rise, stubborn as ever, 'cause cabins don't build themselves, and dreams don't either. But with enough logs and laughter, you can build anything. And Arlo, he was living proof that stubborn hearts build strong homes. The sun peeked through the frosted trees. The cabin stretched like it had just woken up. Arlo rubbed his shoulders and grinned.
Another day of building, another day of dreams.
He chopped wood with the rhythm of a drummer. Each thud echoed like a bass beat in the forest. If only he had an audience besides squirrels. But hey, they seemed mildly impressed. By midday, the log stack looked heroic, enough to outlast winter or build a second cabin. Arlo chuckled at the thought. Why not? His arms groaned, but his spirits soared. The cabin gleamed in agreement.
Every beam whispered, "We've got this." Arlo paused, looked around in awe.
Silence never felt this full before.
Full of life, full of peace.
By evening, the fire crackled proudly. Arlo leaned back, sipping water like fine whiskey. The stars winked down approvingly.
Another day well lived, another dream built.
Sleep came easy in the cabin's arms. Morning light painted the logs gold. Arlo smiled, ready for more. He sanded the beams till they gleamed, like logs headed to a beauty contest. Judges, squirrels, raccoons, and maybe a moose. Spoiler, the cabin won first place. Arlo hammered nails like punctuation marks, each one finishing a sentence of stubbornness. The story grew taller with every strike. By afternoon, the roof stretched higher. Arlo balanced beams like a circus act, except with less applause and more danger. But he pulled it off, grinning ear to ear.
"Ta-da," he whispered to no one.
The forest clapped silently in the breeze. The cabin stood taller, stronger, prouder. Arlo felt taller too, or maybe just sore. Either way, progress was made. Evening fell, painting the sky crimson. The fire crackled, warmth filling the cabin. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin creaked back softly. Morning again, the ritual returned. Wake, work, laugh, repeat. Arlo's life was simple, but rich. The cabin made sure of that. Even storms became background music. Rain drumming, wind howling, logs humming. Together they made a symphony of survival. Arlo listened, smiling in the firelight. This is better than any city concert. The cabin agreed with a gentle sigh. Winter passed, spring returned. Flowers bloomed around the cabin's feet. The forest dressed up for the season. Arlo grinned, breathing in fresh life. He planted a small garden nearby.
'Cause why not add veggies to the dream?
Carrots, beans, and potatoes joined the party. The cabin watched proudly, like a parent. Life wasn't just surviving anymore. It was thriving, one sprout at a time. Arlo sang to the plants badly, but hey, they grew anyway. By summer, the garden flourished. Fresh food, fresh joy, fresh purpose. Arlo feasted like a farmer king. All hail the ruler of beans and spuds. The cabin echoed his laughter, its walls swelling with pride. Together, they had built more than shelter. They had built a life worth living, and the forest applauded in silence, as Arlo dreamed of tomorrow's projects.
Always dreaming, always building.
'Cause that's what dreamers do. They turn wood into wonder. One log, one laugh, one legacy at a time. Arlo patted the wall gently.
"Thanks, old friend," he whispered.
The cabin creaked warmly in reply, and the stars above winked again. The story continued stronger than ever.
'Cause stubborn hearts never quit.
And stubborn cabins never fall. Together they stood unshakable, against storms, against time, against doubt. That's the magic of dreams made real. They last longer than you expect, and shine brighter than you imagine. Arlo smiled, heart steady as stone. The cabin whispered, "Onward, builder." And onward he went, axe in hand. Tomorrow was waiting to be built, and Arlo was ready, as always, because dreams don't pause, they grow, and cabins don't sleep, they watch. Together they carried the story forward, The sun rose, painting the sky in fire. The cabin glowed like it was blushing. Arlo yawned, stretched, and grabbed his axe. 'Cause nothing says good morning like chopping wood. Each swing echoed like thunder in the forest. Birds flew off, annoyed at the early concert. Arlo chuckled. Sorry, folks, lumberjack duty. By midday, logs piled high like trophies, proof of sweat, stubbornness, and calloused hands. He wiped his brow, proud as a king whose crown was sawdust.
Afternoon brought tinkering inside the cabin.
A shelf here, a chair there, all slightly crooked but charming. Rustic style, he called it proudly. Even the cabin seemed amused, its walls echoing with laughter and creaks. By nightfall, Arlo lit the fire. The crackle felt like applause again. He bowed dramatically. Thank you, thank you. The forest clapped back with rustling leaves. Sleep came sweet, dreams even sweeter. Dreams of cabins growing like mushrooms. Arlo woke laughing. One's enough, thanks. Morning greeted him with a cool breeze. The cabin whispered, Ready? Arlo grinned. Always. He chopped, sawed, hammered, once more. The rhythm of his life, steady and true. Each day adding to the wooden story. By noon, sweat rolled down his face. But so did a smile. 'Cause work never felt this good. Even splinters were badges of honor now.
Afternoon came. Arlo fixed the roof again.
'Cause roofs love to keep you busy. Nails clinked, beams groaned, progress happened. By sunset, the cabin looked unbeatable. Arlo nodded, satisfied. He had wrestled wood and won. Night came, stars twinkling like gossiping neighbors. The cabin glowed warmly, secrets safe inside. Arlo snored happily, the forest listening. Another morning, another round of stubborn joy. Arlo stretched, cracked his back like firewood, then got back to work, whistling badly. The cabin hummed along, off-key but proud. By midday, walls looked polished and strong, like they had been lifting weights at night. Arlo laughed. You're getting buff, buddy. The cabin creaked back, clearly agreeing.
Afternoon was spent carving a small sign.
It read, Arlo's place, no rent, no Wi-Fi. He nailed it proudly above the door. The cabin stood taller with its new name. Even raccoons knew not to mess with it now. Evening fell, painting the world gold. Arlo sat by the fire, content. The cabin whispered, We did good. Arlo nodded, eyes heavy with peace. Tomorrow would bring more work. But tonight, dreams came first. Dreams of logs, laughter, and legacy. The cabin listened, smiling in silence. Morning again, sunlight spilling in. Arlo greeted the day with an axe swing. Routine had never felt so rewarding. Each swing a note, each log a verse. The cabin was the chorus, strong and steady. Together they sang the song of survival. By noon the air smelled of sawdust and joy. Arlo wiped his brow, smiling wide. This was life, raw, real, and radiant.
Afternoon was spent repairing a window, 'cause apparently raccoons test them at night.
Arlo grumbled, Stay out, bandits. The cabin chuckled in sympathy. Evening returned with glowing skies. The fire sang, logs popping cheerfully. Arlo whispered, Good night, partner. The cabin answered with a creak. Another perfect day in paradise. Morning after morning, the story continued. Arlo's heart beat in rhythm with the cabin's. Together they stood unshakable. Proof that dreams could be built. One log, one laugh, one sunrise at a time. The forest whispered its blessings, and the stars above nodded in approval. Arlo grinned, axe in hand. Let's keep building, old friend. The cabin agreed with a happy creak, and the story carried on.
'Cause stories like this never end.
They just grow stronger with time. Like cabins, like dreamers, and like laughter in the woods. Arlo smiled, eyes full of light. The cabin whispered back, Onward. And onward they went, together as always. The dawn light kissed the cabin gently. Its logs glowed like golden armor. Arlo stretched, joints cracking like kindling.
Another day, another log, he muttered. His axe gleamed, ready for battle.
Each swing sang through the cool morning air. The forest echoed back in approval. By midday, sweat dripped like raindrops. But the woodpile grew into a monument. Arlo chuckled. Enough for winter, and then some. Afternoon brought repairs inside. A wobbly chair here, a squeaky step there, each fix made with love and stubbornness. By sunset, the cabin gleamed with pride. Arlo grinned. Not bad, old friend. The cabin creaked back warmly. Night fell, stars spilling across the sky. The fire crackled like laughter. Arlo leaned back, heart full. Sleep wrapped him like a thick blanket. Dreams of cabins and endless forests followed. Morning again, birds singing cheerfully. Arlo groaned. "You guys ever sleep in?" The birds ignored him, naturally. He grabbed his saw, ready to work. The forest filled with rhythmic sawing. By noon, the logs lined up neatly, like soldiers waiting for orders. Arlo saluted. "At ease, gentlemen." He stacked them proudly into place. The cabin grew stronger with every log, each one a brick in his wooden dream. By evening, the cabin stood taller. Arlo wiped his brow, smiling wide. "This place could outlive me," he thought, and the cabin creaked as if agreeing. Night came, stars winking mischievously. The fire glowed, warm as a hug. Arlo whispered, "Good night, buddy." The cabin answered in silence and strength.
Another morning, another chance.
Arlo picked up his hammer and nails. Each strike echoed like drumbeats. The cabin hummed along in rhythm. By noon the walls looked polished, like they had been flexing all night. Arlo laughed. "Show off!" The cabin creaked cheekily.
Afternoon sun painted the clearing gold.
Arlo rested, sipping water gratefully. The cabin stood guard, silent and steady. Evening came, shadows stretching long. The fire popped like laughter again. Arlo grinned, heart glowing brighter. He whispered, "We're doing great." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning returned, faithful as ever. Arlo stretched, ready to build again. Every day the cabin grew stronger. Every day Arlo grew happier. The two were inseparable now. Man and cabin, dream and reality. By noon fresh logs joined the family. Arlo stacked them with fatherly care. Each one found its place perfectly, like destiny written in wood. Evening fell, the cabin glowing warmly. The fire laughed, shadows dancing. Arlo leaned back, peace filling him. "This is the life," he murmured. The cabin agreed with a happy groan. Morning light returned like a promise. Arlo rose, stubborn as ever.
"'Cause dreams don't build themselves.
But with enough logs and laughter, you can build anything." The cabin stood as living proof, and Arlo, he was its stubborn heart. Together they carried the story forward.
One log, one laugh, one sunrise at a time.
By evening the stars twinkled happily. The fire popped. The cabin hummed. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin answered with creaking warmth. Another perfect day in paradise. And another dream built stubbornly. Morning returned, painting the forest gold. Arlo swung his axe with gusto. Each thud echoed like a heartbeat. The cabin thrummed along, alive and proud. By noon, progress stacked neatly. Logs, dreams, and stubborn joy. Afternoon repairs turned into evening laughter. Arlo and the cabin, partners in crime. Night wrapped them in comfort again. Dreams whispered softly in the firelight. Morning came, steady as always. Arlo grinned. "Let's keep going." The cabin creaked, always. And the story marched on, unstoppable. Dawn spilled across the forest floor. The cabin glowed like a wooden sunrise. Arlo stretched, bones cracking like twigs. He picked up his axe, grin wide. "Good morning, stubborn friend," he said. The cabin creaked back, clearly awake. By midday the logs piled high, enough to make even the squirrels jealous. Arlo laughed, wiping sweat with his sleeve. "This is better than any gym." Afternoon sun lit up the cabin. Its beams looked like they were flexing. "Show off," Arlo teased. The cabin creaked smugly in reply. By evening the fire crackled happily. Arlo leaned back, content as ever. Stars blinked above like curious eyes. The cabin glowed warmly in the dark. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back in wood and warmth. Morning greeted them with golden rays. Arlo rose, stubborn as always. 'Cause dreams don't stop halfway. He chopped, sawed, hammered with gusto. The forest echoed with the rhythm of progress. By noon the logs stood proud in place. The cabin grew stronger, prouder, taller. Arlo grinned. Not bad for 2 hands. The cabin creaked, and 4 walls. Evening fell, shadows long and soft. The fire popped like laughter again. Arlo leaned back, heart glowing.
"This is it," he whispered.
The cabin sighed contentedly in reply. Morning again, reliable as ever. Arlo rose with determination in his eyes. 'Cause cabins don't build themselves. but stubborn dreamers sure can. By midday, sawdust filled the air, like golden confetti celebrating progress. Arlo sneezed, laughed, and kept going.
Afternoon brought finishing touches.
A shelf, a stool, a little more charm. Rustic chic, he called it proudly. Even the cabin seemed to smirk. By night, the fire sang cheerfully. Arlo whispered, "Sleep well, old friend." The cabin answered with creaking warmth. Morning again, birds screaming like alarms. Arlo groaned. 5 more minutes, but duty called as always. He picked up his hammer, smiling. The cabin waited patiently for more. By noon, progress was loud and proud. Nails clicking, beams settling.
Afternoon sun painted everything gold.
Arlo wiped his brow, satisfied. This place is unbeatable, he thought. The cabin stood silent, proud agreement. Evening came, shadows long and calm. The fire popped like laughter again. Arlo leaned back, heart glowing. The stars nodded in approval. The cabin hummed softly in peace. Morning returned, steady as always.
Arlo rose, axe ready. 'Cause stubbornness doesn't take breaks.
By noon the logs stood proud.
Afternoon brought laughter and repairs.
By night peace reigned again. The cabin glowed, guardian of dreams. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back in wood and warmth.
Another morning, another chance.
Arlo smiled. "Let's keep building." The cabin answered with a creak, and so the story carried on.
One log, one laugh, one dream at a time.
The forest listened, the stars approved, and the cabin stood, strong and proud. Morning returned, Arlo unstoppable. Dreams don't quit, and neither did he. By noon the logs sang with progress.
Afternoon laughter echoed in the woods.
Evening peace wrapped them warmly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin creaked back with pride. Night fell, stars sparkling above. The fire glowed like a friend. Morning again, work waiting patiently. Arlo grinned. "Let's get to it." The cabin answered with steady silence. By noon progress was undeniable.
Afternoon laughter filled the air.
Evening peace followed naturally. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin creaked warmly in reply, and dreams carried them onward.
'Cause stories like this never end.
They just keep building, log by log. Dawn painted the sky with gentle fire. The cabin shone like a polished jewel. Arlo rose, yawning like a bear. He grabbed his axe, grin returning. "Ready for another round?" he asked. The cabin creaked, clearly saying yes. By noon sawdust danced in the sunlight, each swing of the axe a heartbeat. The forest hummed along in rhythm. Arlo chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. This beats a treadmill any day. Afternoon brought repairs to the roof, 'cause roofs always want attention. By sunset, the cabin stood prouder. Arlo admired it with tired eyes. The fire popped like laughter that night. Arlo whispered, "Sleep tight, buddy." The cabin creaked softly in reply. Morning greeted them with golden light. Arlo stretched, back cracking loudly.
Another day, another stubborn dream.
He hammered nails with cheerful rhythm, each strike a note in the cabin's song. By noon progress gleamed in the sunlight.
Afternoon laughter echoed off the walls.
By evening peace settled gently. The cabin glowed like a lantern. Arlo whispered, "We're doing it." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning returned with faithful light. Arlo grinned. "Let's get to it." By noon, sawdust filled the clearing. Afternoon repairs kept him busy. By night, the cabin hummed with pride. Arlo leaned back, smiling softly. "This is paradise," he thought. The stars winked above in agreement. Morning again, routine strong as ever. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. The forest echoed with steady rhythm. By noon, progress stood tall and proud.
Afternoon sun painted everything gold.
Evening fire crackled like applause. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin sighed happily back. Morning came with fresh energy. Arlo chopped wood like a machine, each swing more confident than the last. By midday, sweat poured like rain, but the log pile grew mighty.
Afternoon laughter shook the walls.
Evening peace wrapped the cabin gently. Arlo leaned back, exhausted but happy.
This is the dream, he thought.
The cabin agreed with a proud creak. Night fell, stars glowing above. The fire hummed like a lullaby. Arlo drifted into peaceful dreams. Morning again, stubborn as ever. Arlo grinned, axe ready. Because dreams don't stop, they grow. By noon, sawdust filled the air.
Afternoon brought new shelves inside.
Rustic, wobbly but charming. By night, the cabin shone warmly. Arlo whispered, "Thanks, partner." The cabin whispered back proudly. Morning returned, loyal as always. Arlo swung his axe with joy. Logs fell, dreams grew. By noon, progress stood tall.
Afternoon laughter echoed through the forest.
By night, peace returned softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin creaked warmly back.
Another day done, another dream built.
Morning light spilled across the cabin.
Arlo rose, determination shining. 'Cause cabins don't finish themselves.
By noon, nails clicked into place.
Afternoon beams settled snugly.
By evening, the cabin looked unbeatable. Arlo grinned, proud as a king. The fire glowed, laughter filling the night. Stars winked, cabin hummed. Arlo whispered, "Another good day?" The cabin agreed with a gentle creak. Morning again, faithful as always. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. The forest echoed with steady rhythm. By noon, progress gleamed brightly.
Afternoon laughter filled the clearing.
By night, peace settled softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin sighed warmly back. Dreams carried them onward again.
'Cause stubborn hearts never rest.
And stubborn cabins never fall. Together they built forever.
One log, one laugh, one dream at a time.
The dawn broke, soft and golden. The cabin shimmered like a proud sentinel. Arlo stretched, groaning like an old hinge. He grabbed his axe, grin unstoppable. "Another day, another log," he said. The cabin creaked as if rolling its eyes. By midday, the forest echoed with rhythm. Each swing sang with determination. Arlo's sweat glistened like diamonds, muddy ones. He laughed. "Oh, who needs jewelry anyway?" Afternoon brought repairs on a stubborn beam. The hammer echoed like a marching drum. By sunset, the cabin stood even prouder. Arlo nodded, pleased with the day. The fire popped like it was clapping. Arlo bowed. "Thank you, thank you." The cabin groaned like it was laughing. Morning again, reliable as ever. Arlo rose, stubborn spark in his eyes.
'Cause dreams don't wait for breaks.
By noon, logs stacked like a fortress. Afternoon laughter echoed through the woods. By night, peace wrapped them warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin answered with creaking pride. Morning sun spilled through the trees. Arlo stretched, joints cracking like firewood. He grabbed his saw with a smile. The forest filled with steady rhythm. By noon, sweat poured like rain. But the woodpile grew mighty and proud.
Afternoon brought hammering and humming.
By night, the fire hummed too. Arlo grinned. Not bad for one guy. The cabin creaked. And one cabin. Morning came, fresh as ever. Arlo picked up his axe, smiling.
'Cause stubborn hearts don't stop.
By noon, sawdust filled the air.
Afternoon laughter shook the beams.
Evening fire glowed, warm and steady. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin sighed happily back. Morning again, Arlo, unstoppable. Dreams don't build themselves. By noon, logs lined up neatly. Afternoon sun painted everything gold. By night, the cabin gleamed proudly. Arlo grinned. "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked in proud reply. Morning dawned with birdsong and light. Arlo rose, stubborn joy in his step. He hammered nails with cheerful rhythm. Each strike echoed through the clearing. By noon, progress sang loudly. Afternoon laughter joined the song. Evening peace settled warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back in wood and warmth. Morning light spilled through the trees. Arlo rose, axe in hand. By noon, sawdust filled the forest air.
Afternoon repairs sang with hammers.
By night, the fire glowed brightly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin agreed with a creak. Morning again, faithful as always. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. By noon, logs stacked like giants.
Afternoon sun lit up the beams.
Evening fire popped with cheer. Arlo leaned back, proud and tired. The cabin hummed softly in approval. Morning came, steady as ever.
Arlo rose, humming terribly.
By noon, sawdust clung to his hair.
Afternoon laughter echoed in the woods.
By night, peace glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered back proudly. Morning returned with faithful light. Arlo grinned, "Let's keep going." By noon, progress gleamed brightly.
Afternoon brought more laughter.
Evening peace followed close behind. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin sighed in reply. Morning again, axe ready. By noon, logs stood proud.
Afternoon sun painted the walls.
By night, firelight filled the cabin. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin agreed with a creak. Stars twinkled above, proud witnesses. Morning light spilled gently again. Arlo rose, smile wide. By noon, the forest sang with progress.
Afternoon laughter joined the tune.
By night, peace reigned once more. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin whispered back, steady and warm. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo rose, axe gleaming in hand. By noon, sawdust danced like golden snow. Afternoon beams settled firmly in place. By night, the fire crackled cheerfully. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin creaked softly in agreement. Morning again, reliable as the sunrise. Arlo stretched, grinning stubbornly. By noon, the log pile towered high. Afternoon laughter echoed in the clearing. By night, peace wrapped them tight. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin answered with creaking warmth. Morning light spilled across the beams.
Arlo rose, humming terribly.
By noon, nails tapped in rhythm.
Afternoon sun lit up the cabin walls.
By night, the fire sang again. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin groaned proudly in reply. Morning greeted them with faithful light. Arlo picked up his saw eagerly. By noon, sawdust glittered everywhere.
Afternoon laughter shook the rafters.
By night, peace settled warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered back kindly.
Another sunrise, another chance.
Arlo grinned, axe ready for battle. By noon, logs stood proud and tall. Afternoon sun gilded the clearing. By night, the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin answered with steady warmth. Morning returned, stubborn as ever.
Arlo swung his axe like a hymn.
By noon, sawdust filled the air. Afternoon repairs brought new laughter. By night, firelight danced merrily. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back in peace. Morning spilled like liquid gold. Arlo stretched, joints popping noisily. By noon, progress stacked proudly.
Afternoon sun lit up the clearing.
By night, peace returned softly. Arlo whispered, "Sleep well, old friend." The cabin creaked warmly back. Morning came, faithful as always. Arlo picked up his hammer with joy. By noon, nails sang in rhythm. Afternoon beams settled snugly. By night, the fire glowed proudly. Arlo whispered, "Another day won." The cabin whispered back with pride. Morning again, reliable as ever. Arlo grinned, "Let's keep building." By noon, sawdust flew freely. Afternoon laughter echoed off the beams. By night, peace settled like a blanket. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered back softly. Morning spilled into the clearing again. Arlo stretched, humming terribly off-key. By noon, logs stacked neatly in place. Afternoon sun painted golden stripes. By night, the cabin gleamed warmly. Arlo whispered, "We did good." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning again, axe shining. By noon, sawdust sparkled in the light.
Afternoon laughter rang clear.
By night, firelight warmed the walls. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back in peace. Morning sun greeted the cabin proudly. Arlo rose, grin wide and stubborn. By noon, progress echoed through the forest.
Afternoon beams hummed in place.
By night, the cabin sang with pride. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin creaked happily in reply. Morning returned, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his saw, determined. By noon, sawdust filled the clearing.
Afternoon laughter shook the walls.
By night, peace settled gently. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered back kindly. Morning spilled across the beams again. Arlo swung his axe with joy. By noon, logs stood proud and tall. Afternoon sun painted everything gold. By night, the fire glowed proudly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin answered with creaking pride. Morning light spilled faithfully again. Arlo whispered, "Let's keep building." The cabin creaked back, eager as ever. Morning dawned with a stubborn glow. Arlo stretched back, cracking like dry wood. By noon, sawdust filled the sunlight.
Afternoon laughter echoed in the clearing.
By night, the fire hummed like a lullaby. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered warmly in reply.
Another morning, another swing of the axe.
By noon, logs stacked like soldiers.
Afternoon beams hummed into place.
By night, the fire glowed steady. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning sun spilled into the clearing. Arlo rose, grin wide and stubborn. By noon, sawdust danced in the air.
Afternoon laughter shook the beams.
By night, peace wrapped them warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered back softly. Morning came, steady as ever. Arlo swung his axe with cheer. By noon, logs stood proud.
Afternoon sun painted stripes of gold.
By night, the cabin glowed brightly. Arlo whispered, "Another day done." The cabin creaked happily in reply. Morning spilled across the roof. Arlo stretched, humming badly on purpose. By noon, sawdust glittered everywhere.
Afternoon beams echoed with laughter.
By night, peace settled softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered warmly back. Morning again, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. By noon, logs stacked like a fortress.
Afternoon sun lit up the clearing.
By night, the fire glowed proudly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked proudly in reply. Morning spilled across the beams again. Arlo stretched, joints cracking loudly. By noon, sawdust filled the sunlight. Afternoon laughter echoed through the forest. By night, peace wrapped them tightly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin sighed in reply. Morning returned with stubborn glow. Arlo rose, axe shining in hand. By noon, sawdust floated like golden mist.
Afternoon beams hummed steadily.
By night, the fire warmed the walls. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin creaked proudly in reply. Morning spilled across the clearing. Arlo stretched, humming loudly off-key. By noon, logs stood proud and tall.
Afternoon sun painted stripes of light.
By night, the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, old friend." The cabin whispered back in peace. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his hammer with joy. By noon, nails clicked into place.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, the fire glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin whispered softly back. Morning again, reliable as the sunrise. Arlo rose, grin wide and stubborn. By noon, sawdust sparkled in the clearing.
Afternoon laughter filled the air.
By night, peace wrapped them warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin creaked happily in reply. Morning spilled through the beams. Arlo swung his axe like a song. By noon, logs stood tall and proud.
Afternoon sun painted golden light.
By night, the fire glowed brightly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin whispered back proudly. Morning returned, stubborn as ever. Arlo grinned, "Let's keep building." By noon, sawdust filled the sunlight.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, the cabin glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin creaked happily back. Morning spilled across the clearing. Arlo picked up his saw with cheer. By noon, logs stacked like giants. Afternoon sun painted golden stripes. By night, the fire hummed softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered warmly in reply. Morning came, steady as always. Arlo whispered, "Let's keep dreaming." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning spilled across the beams. Arlo rose, joints cracking like popcorn. By noon, sawdust flew like confetti.
Afternoon laughter echoed in the clearing.
By night, the fire glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin whispered softly in reply. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his axe with joy. By noon, logs stood proud and tall.
Afternoon beams hummed in place.
By night, peace wrapped the cabin. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin creaked warmly back. Morning light spilled like honey. Arlo stretched, humming out of tune. By noon, sawdust glittered in the sun.
Afternoon laughter shook the rafters.
By night, firelight warmed the walls. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin whispered back proudly. Morning spilled through the clearing. Arlo rose, smile wide and stubborn. By noon, logs stacked like towers.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin sighed warmly back. Morning again, reliable as ever. Arlo swung his axe with cheer. By noon, sawdust sparkled in sunlight. Afternoon laughter echoed through the forest. By night, the fire hummed softly. Arlo whispered, "Another day done." The cabin whispered back kindly. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo rose, humming badly on purpose. By noon, logs stood proud and tall. Afternoon sun painted golden light. By night, the cabin glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked proudly in reply. Morning spilled across the beams. Arlo stretched back, popping loudly. By noon, sawdust glittered everywhere. Afternoon laughter echoed joyfully. By night, firelight danced happily. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin whispered warmly back. Morning returned, steady as ever. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. By noon, logs stacked like soldiers.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, peace wrapped them warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin sighed softly back. Morning spilled through the clearing again. Arlo rose, grinned stubborn as always. By noon, sawdust sparkled in sunlight.
Afternoon laughter shook the rafters.
By night, the fire glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "We did good." The cabin whispered back proudly. Morning again, faithful as ever. Arlo swung his axe with rhythm. By noon, logs stood tall and proud.
Afternoon sun painted golden beams.
By night, the cabin glowed brightly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning spilled like liquid gold. Arlo stretched, humming cheerfully. By noon, sawdust filled the clearing.
Afternoon beams hummed steadily.
By night, peace wrapped them tight. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered warmly back. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. By noon, logs stood proud like giants.
Afternoon sun lit up the clearing.
By night, firelight warmed the cabin. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin creaked proudly in reply. Morning spilled across the beams again. Arlo rose, joints cracking like twigs. By noon, sawdust glittered in the sunlight.
Afternoon laughter filled the air.
By night, peace wrapped them gently. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin whispered kindly back. Morning came, faithful as always.
Arlo swung his axe like a hymn.
By noon, logs stacked neatly in place.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning spilled across the clearing once more. Arlo rose, humming off-key with pride. By noon, sawdust sparkled like glitter.
Afternoon laughter bounced off the trees.
By night, the fire hummed gently. Arlo whispered, "Another day done?" The cabin sighed happily back. Morning came, stubborn as ever. Arlo grinned, axe sharp and ready. By noon, logs stood tall like giants.
Afternoon beams hummed with pride.
By night, the cabin glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered kindly back. Morning spilled like golden wine. Arlo stretched, humming cheerfully. By noon, sawdust glittered in sunlight.
Afternoon laughter shook the rafters.
By night, the fire glowed brightly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin whispered proudly back. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo picked up his hammer with joy. By noon, nails clicked into place.
Afternoon beams hummed proudly.
By night, peace wrapped them softly. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin sighed happily back. Morning light spilled across the clearing. Arlo rose, humming like a rooster. By noon, sawdust danced in the air. Afternoon laughter echoed through the forest. By night the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin creaked warmly back. "Morning again, reliable as ever." Arlo swung his axe like a song. By noon logs stood proud and tall.
Afternoon beams hummed steadily.
By night firelight wrapped the cabin. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin whispered proudly back. Morning spilled like warm honey. Arlo stretched, humming off-key. By noon sawdust sparkled like glitter. Afternoon laughter rang across the clearing. By night peace settled gently. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered softly back. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo rose, grin wide and stubborn. By noon logs stood proud as soldiers.
Afternoon sun painted stripes of gold.
By night the cabin glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin whispered proudly back. Morning spilled through the clearing. Arlo picked up his saw with joy. By noon sawdust filled the sunlight.
Afternoon laughter echoed off the trees.
By night firelight danced merrily. Arlo whispered, "Another good day." The cabin whispered warmly back. Morning returned, steady as ever. Arlo grinned, humming cheerfully. By noon logs stood proud and tall.
Afternoon beams hummed into place.
By night the fire glowed warmly. Arlo whispered, "Good night, stubborn friend." The cabin creaked kindly back. Morning spilled like golden streams. Arlo stretched, humming badly on purpose. By noon sawdust glittered in sunlight. Afternoon laughter echoed joyfully. By night peace wrapped the cabin. Arlo whispered, "We did good." The cabin whispered proudly back. Morning came, faithful as always.
Arlo swung his axe like a hymn.
By noon logs stood strong and steady. Afternoon sun painted golden light. By night firelight danced happily. Arlo whispered, "Another perfect day." The cabin creaked warmly back. Morning spilled like liquid sunshine. Arlo rose, humming cheerfully. By noon sawdust filled the clearing.
Afternoon laughter rang like music.
By night peace settled gently. Arlo whispered, "Good night, partner." The cabin whispered kindly back. Morning came, stubborn as always. Arlo grinned, humming terribly off-key. By noon logs stacked neatly in place.
Afternoon beams hummed with pride.
By night the cabin glowed softly. Arlo whispered, "We're unstoppable." The cabin creaked proudly back. Morning spilled across the beams again. Arlo whispered, "Forever, my friend." The cabin whispered back, "Forever."